The annual Galactic Wildlife Classification Review was, by design, the most boring event in the known universe. This was precisely why Dr. Pax Tentacula loved it so much. After 247 cycles of service at the Intergalactic Zoological Society, they had developed a deep appreciation for tedium, predictability, and the gentle hum of bureaucracy in motion. Next specimen, Zorp Pax announced, their 7 sensory tentacles waving lazily in the recycled air of the classification chamber. Their assistant, a rather enthusiastic blob of purple protoplasm, wobbled excitedly as they pulled up the next holographic display. You'll love this one, Doctor. It's from that backwater planet we've been monitoring. Earth, I believe Zorp's surface rippled with barely contained excitement, which immediately made Pax suspicious. Excitement had no place in proper scientific classification. Earth Pax's primary tentacle curled thoughtfully. Ah yes, that Class 3 developing world with the bipedal tool users. Rather primitive place, as I recall. What could possibly be interesting about their wildlife? The hologram flickered to life, displaying a small, furry creature with a duck-like bill, webbed feet, and… was that a venomous spur? There must be an error in the database, Pax declared, all 7 tentacles now rigid with professional concern. This appears to be multiple species merged into a single file. Zorp, run a diagnostic. Already did, Doctor. 3 times. This is a single species called a platypus. It's a mammal that lays eggs, produces venom, has electroreception, and… Stop Pax's color shifted from its usual professional mauve to a disturbed shade of puce. That's impossible. You cannot have a mammal that lays eggs. That's not how classification works. That's not how any of this works. But Zorp was already pulling up more files. Actually, Doctor, that's just the beginning. You see, Earth has this fascinating variety of… Next specimen, Pax interrupted, their voice hitting the higher octaves of distress. But the damage was already done. The holographic display was now showing something called a tardigrade. This microscopic creature can survive in the vacuum of space, withstand pressures 6 times greater than the deepest ocean trenches, endure temperatures from near absolute zero to well above boiling, and can go without water for up to 30 years, Zorp bubbled enthusiastically. Pax's tentacles began to twitch uncontrollably. That's not. Where did they get their military-grade genetic engineering technology? Our scans showed they've barely achieved spaceflight. They didn't engineer it, Doctor. It evolved naturally. The classification chamber's monitoring system registered a slight spike in Pax's blood pressure. Naturally? Naturally? Nothing evolves to survive the vacuum of space naturally. Well, Zorp continued, their purple mass practically vibrating with scientific glee. Wait until you see the immortal jellyfish. It can revert to its juvenile form when stressed, essentially achieving biological immortality through. The classification chamber's emergency medical drone activated as Pax's color shifted to an alarming shade of gray. This is obviously a mistake, they declared, their voice reaching the careful calm of someone teetering on the edge of a professional breakdown. Clearly, our long-range scanning equipment is malfunctioning. We'll need to dispatch a research team for proper observation. Already compiled a list of Earth specimens for priority investigation, Zorp announced proudly, bringing up a holographic spreadsheet. I've included the honey badger, the pistol shrimp, the bombardier beetle, and something called an echidna, which is another egg-laying mammal. The medical drone's sensors registered a dangerous spike in Pax's neural activity. Zorpax said with forced composure, their tentacles now completely rigid, please tell me you haven't already submitted this data to the Central Classification Network. Of course I did. Standard protocol requires immediate uploading of all new species data. It's already being integrated into the Galactic database as we speak. The classification chamber's ambient lighting suddenly shifted to red as warning alerts began flashing across multiple screens. The Central Classification Network was registering thousands of errors as it attempted to process the new Earth species data. Oh dear, Zorp burbled, their purple mass slightly paling. It seems the system is having trouble categorizing these creatures within our existing classification parameters. Pax watched in horror as centuries of carefully organized biological classification began to unravel before their eyes. Their life's work, the very foundation of galactic zoological science, was being undone by a planet full of impossible creatures that simply refused to follow the rules. Zorp, they said quietly, All 7 tentacles drooping in defeat, schedule an emergency meeting of the High Classification Council. And bring the files on something called a duck-billed platypus. The council needs to see this for themselves. As the classification chamber descended into chaos around them, Zorp couldn't help but notice that the emergency medical drone had begun dispensing stress relief medication directly into the ventilation system. This, they decided, was going to be the most exciting annual review in the history of the Intergalactic Zoological Society. And they hadn't even gotten to the files on Australian wildlife yet. The emergency meeting of the High Classification Council was not going well. The council chamber, normally a model of scientific decorum, had devolved into something more closely resembling a panic room for overwhelmed academics. Order. Order in the council's supreme classifier V. Lara pounded their gravity hammer against the floating podium, causing several holograms to flicker. The ancient classifier's crystalline structure was showing distinct signs of stress fractures. Dr. Pax Tentacular, please continue your presentation, but perhaps with less disturbing examples. Pax's tentacles drooped apologetically. My sincerest apologies for the earlier incident with the platypus data. I didn't expect council member Creeks to actually molt their exoskeleton in shock. In the corner, a team of medical drones was still attempting to assist the aforementioned council member, who lay surrounded by shed carapace plates, mumbling something about egg-laying mammals being an abomination against nature. Perhaps we should move on to something less controversial, Pax suggested, gesturing to Zorp to advance to the next slide. Here we have a simple earth reptile called the Jesus Christ lizard, named for its ability to run across water. The council chamber erupted in fresh chaos. Impossible, shouted a council member composed entirely of quantum probability clouds. The surface tension requirements alone would. If I may continue, Pax interrupted, their professional composure cracking slightly. This is actually one of the more mundane examples. Consider the pistol shrimp, which creates underwater plasma bubbles hotter than the sun's surface by snapping its claw. 3 council members simultaneously initiated emergency meditation protocols. Or perhaps the wood frog, which can freeze solid in winter with no heartbeat or brain activity, then simply thaw out and hop away in spring. A council member made of pure energy began to flicker dangerously. Or maybe the naked mole rat, which is immune to cancer, feels no pain, can survive 18 minutes without oxygen, and appears to be biologically immortal. Dr. Tacula V. Lara interrupted, their crystalline structure vibrating with concern. Are you suggesting that a single planet has somehow produced multiple immortal species? Oh no, Supreme Classifier Zorp bubbled helpfully. These are just the moderately weird ones. Wait until you see what we found in Australia. The chamber's emergency medical systems activated automatically as several council members began showing signs of acute scientific distress. For example, Zorp continued, blissfully unaware of the growing crisis, there's this delightful creature called a cone snail. It fires harpoons filled with a complex neurotoxin that contains thousands of unique compounds, many of which we can't even begin to analyze with our current technology. A snail wheezed a gaseous council member, their cloud form condensing in anxiety. With biological harpoons. Indeed, Zorp's enthusiasm remained undimmed. And then there's the box jellyfish, whose venom is so complex it attacks the cellular level in multiple ways simultaneously, including the heart, nervous system, and skin cells. It's considered one of the most venomous creatures in their world, although there's quite a bit of competition for that title. Competition, V. Lara's voice cracked, sending crystalline chimes echoing through the chamber. Oh yes, Earth has an astounding variety of venomous creatures. There's this fascinating spider that causes something called priapism in its victims, which means enough. V. Lara's command shattered 3 nearby data screens. Dr. Tentacular, surely you're not suggesting these creatures evolved naturally. This must be some form of biological warfare research. Pax's tentacles twisted in scientific agony. We've analyzed their technology level extensively. They're barely capable of genetic modification, let alone creating something like the immortal jellyfish or the tardigrade. No, Supreme Classifier, all evidence suggests these are natural evolutionary developments. But that's not how evolution works, protested a council member who appeared to be a sentient mathematical equation. There must be rules, order, logical progression. Speaking of rules, Zorp interjected cheerfully, wait until you see what the octopus can do. They can edit their own RNA, change color and texture instantly, squeeze through any hole larger than their beak, and they have 9 brains. The Mathematical Council members' symbols began to rearrange themselves in distress. 9. Brains v. Lara's crystalline structure was developing hairline fractures. Why would any creature need 9 brains? That's not even the weird part, Zorp continued. Their arms can make decisions independently, they can solve complex puzzles, use tools, and there's significant debate about whether they might actually be from another planet entirely. The chamber's emergency systems registered a critical spike in collective blood pressure, neural activity, and reality acceptance levels. And then there's this delightful little creature called a tardigrade, which can survive. No Pax's tentacles whipped out to cover Zorp's data projector. We are not discussing the tardigrade data today. The Council isn't ready. V. Lara's surface had developed a distinct stress-induced iridescence. Dr. Tentacular, are you telling us that a single Class 3 planet has somehow produced creatures that can survive the vacuum of space, create underwater plasma explosions, freeze solid and resurrect themselves, achieve biological immortality, fire toxic harpoons, edit their own genetic code, and lay eggs despite being mammals? Well, Pax replied carefully, when you put it that way, it does sound rather alarming. But I haven't even shown you the files on something called a pangolin yet. It's basically an armored anteater that can roll itself into a perfect ball. The Chamber's medical systems registered 3 simultaneous cases of scientific apoplexy. This meeting is adjourned, V. Lara announced, their voice hitting frequencies that shattered the remaining functional displays. All data regarding Earth wildlife is to be classified as potentially weaponized biological anomalies until further notice. And somebody please help Council member Criggs with their molting situation. As the Council chamber descended into pandemonium, Zorp turned to Pax with what passed for concern in a blob of purple protoplasm. Should I cancel the presentation on Australian spiders that can eat birds, or? Zorp Pax interrupted, watching as the medical drones administered emergency reality stabilizers to the Council. I believe we should save the Australian wildlife data for, well, possibly never. There are some things the Council simply isn't prepared to handle. In the corner, Council member Creeks had begun working on a second emergency molt. The Central Classification Database had been the pride of galactic science for over 10,000 years. It had categorized everything from quantum shifting space whales to microscopic dimensional fold parasites without so much as a processing hiccup. Now, it was having what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. Warning classification parameters exceeded. Logic error. Reality compliance failure. Processing honey badger data. Error. 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 Pax watched in horror as red warning symbols cascaded across the master control screen. Beside them, Zorp had turned a concerning shade of chartreuse. I don't understand, Zorp bubbled anxiously. All I did was input the basic behavioral data. I haven't even gotten to the part about their pain tolerance yet. What exactly did you input? Pax demanded, their tentacles frantically dancing across multiple emergency override panels. Just the standard stuff. Their ability to survive venomous snake bites, their habit of fighting off lions, their tendency to attack vehicles, their resistance to most known toxins, their documented battles with entire colonies of killer bees. The database's warning sirens reached a new pitch of electronic distress. Classification impossible. Species defies known laws of nature. Attempting reclassification as mythological entity. Error. Error. Attempting reclassification as synthetic weapon system. Error. Senior researcher Blorp chose that exact moment to ooze into the control room, their gelatinous form quivering with bureaucratic authority. What in the name of controlled scientific observation is going on here? The database is having trouble classifying Earth wildlife, Pax explained, trying to maintain their professional composure as another bank of processors began smoking. Honey badger behavioral analysis exceeds probability matrices. Detected potential divide by 0 error. Reality coherence failing. Blorp's surface rippled with suspicion. Earth, that backwater planet with the bipedal tool users? Impossible. Their wildlife can't be that complex. Unless their gelatinous mass contracted thoughtfully. Unless we're dealing with something more sinister. Military bioengineering, perhaps. That was our first thought, Pax admitted. But their technology level is nowhere near advanced enough. They're still exploring their own solar system, and their genetic engineering capabilities are primitive at best. Attempting to process Wolverine data. Error. Species shares 72.3% behavioral patterns with honey badger. Logic cascading failure. 2 of them, Blorp's entire fawn paled. There are 2 species with that level of improbability. Oh, those are just the beginning, Zorp said helpfully. Wait until you see the data on cassowaries. They're basically modern velociraptors with better color vision and a worse attitude. The database's main screen began displaying fractal error patterns. Processing cassowary threat assessment. Error. Detected potential temporal paradox. Species displays characteristics of extinct apex predators. Evolutionary timeline inconsistency detected. Enough, Blorp's gelatinous form solidified with authority. Shut it down. Shut it all down before we lose the entire classification system. But it was too late. The database had already begun processing the Australian wildlife files. Analyzing Sydney funnel web spider. Error. Venom specifically targeted to primates. Evolutionary development impossible. Processing inland taipan toxicity levels. Error. Detected potential violation of chemical weapons conventions. Smoke began pouring from the quantum processors. Saltwater crocodile dimensions exceed logical parameters. Blue ringed octopus toxin complexity incompatible with size. Box jellyfish venom compounds exceeding known chemical possibilities. It's going to blow, Pax shouted, their tentacles wildly gesturing toward the emergency exit. Everyone out, now. They barely made it to safety before the central processing core achieved critical failure. Through the reinforced observation window, they watched as 10,000 years of carefully organized biological data collapsed into chaos. This is impossible, Blorp muttered, their gelatinous form quivering with a mixture of fear and fascination. No natural ecosystem could produce such a concentration of lethal, improbable creatures. This must be some kind of weapons research facility disguised as a planet. That's what we thought, Pax replied wearily. But we've been monitoring them for centuries. They're not creating these creatures, they're just living with them. Living with them, Blorp's entire form rippled in disbelief. You're telling me these bipeds are just casually coexisting with biological impossibilities? Well, Zorp interjected, they do seem to have developed something called wildlife photography, where they deliberately get close to these creatures to take pictures of them. Through the window, the last backup servers succumbed to cascading failure. They get close. On purpose, Blorp's surface began developing stress ripples. 4. Entertainment. Oh yes, Zorp enthused. They even have something called nature documentaries where they track and film these creatures for fun. There's this one human called Steve Irwin who used to. No, Pax interrupted frantically. We are not ready for the Steve Irwin data. The backup servers haven't even finished cooling down. In the smoking ruins of the central processing room, a single screen flickered to life, displaying one final message. Earth wildlife classification status does not compute. Recommended action: do not antagonize. Repeat, do not antagonize, especially the honey badger. Blorp's gelatinous form had begun to develop stress crystals. Schedule an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. If these bipeds are capable of not only surviving alongside these creatures but treating them as entertainment, we may need to reconsider their classification as a primitive species. Behind them, the last functioning server began playing what appeared to be footage of something called a platypus. The Defense Council was not going to be happy about this. Field Research Report 2387E, first direct observation of Earth wildlife status classified. Note: this report has been reconstructed from emergency transmissions, distress beacons, and the therapeutic journals of the survival team. Day 1 lead field researcher cracks his personal log. Our stealth insertion into Earth's wilderness was successful. The team is in high spirits, confident that the Council's concerns about Earth wildlife are greatly exaggerated. After all, how dangerous can these creatures be to a team of trained xenobiologists with advanced technology? Update: we have just witnessed a small ursine creature consuming toxic vegetation while sitting in a tree. The locals call it a koala. It appears to be intoxicated. The Council's fears seem increasingly unfounded. Day 2 emergency transmission from assistant researcher Nix the koala dropped onto Vector's containment suit. It's screaming. How can something so small be so loud? Vector's suit sensors are registering minimal damage but maximum psychological trauma. Day 3 Crax's log have relocated to a new observation zone after the koala incident. Vector is still refusing to go near trees. We've selected what the locals call a petting zoo for our next observation. The name suggests these are their most domesticated, harmless specimens. Emergency transmission abort. Abort. The friendly creature called a llama has begun what the locals term a spitting incident. Our shields were not designed for this form of biological warfare. Day 4 collective team log have determined that Earth's harmless creatures are anything but. The small hopping creatures called kangaroos are apparently skilled in hand-to-hand combat. Research assistant Zip attempted to scan one and was immediately challenged to what appeared to be a boxing match. Medical update: Zip's exoskeleton will heal, but their pride may not. Day 5 Crax's trauma journal made the mistake of investigating something called a raccoon. It appeared to be a small, gentle creature. It was not. It opened our supposedly quantum-locked food storage with its bare paws. When confronted, it stood up like a tiny person and hissed. The entire team fled in terror. The creature then proceeded to eat our rations while maintaining direct eye contact with our surveillance drones. Day 6 emergency beacon activation record requesting immediate extraction. The small flying creatures designated as magpies have taken offense to our presence. Our stealth technology is useless. They can somehow sense fear. The swoop attacks are relentless. Even the local humans are running. Day 7 psychiatric evaluation note: the team's encounter with something called a goose has resulted in 3 researchers requesting immediate retirement from field work. The goose has somehow acquired Nix's quantum scanner. We have been advised not to attempt retrieval. Day 8 Crax's final warning transmission: do not, under any circumstances, investigate the creatures called house cats. We found one and thought we had finally discovered a genuinely harmless Earth species. It was small, appeared to be sleeping, and showed all signs of being domesticated. We were wrong. So very wrong. Attached medical report: multiple lacerations from apparently instantaneous attack. Subject moved faster than our tracking systems could register. Current working theory: Earth felines may have limited teleportation capabilities. 3 researchers pending psychological evaluation after incident. Day 9 automated distress signal: the cats have allies. Small canines designated as chihuahuas have joined forces with local feline population. Team surrounded. Confidence severely damaged. Requesting emergency extraction. Day 10 final team report submitted from quarantine after 10 days of field observation. We can conclusively state that Earth's wildlife classification as potentially weaponized biological anomalies may have been an understatement. We have documented the following conclusions. 1. The seemingly harmless creatures are the most dangerous. The team now experiences collective trauma responses to the words platypus, raccoon, and house cat. 2. Size is no indicator of threat level. The creature known as a honey badger caused more damage to our equipment than an entire herd of elephants. 3. Earth's defensive technology is far more advanced than previously believed, as evidenced by the raccoon's ability to bypass our quantum-locked containers. 4. The human's ability to coexist with these creatures suggests either incredible resilience or a complete lack of self-preservation instinct. Further study is needed, preferably from orbit. 5. The house cat incident has been classified beyond top secret, as the implications of their apparent ability to violate the laws of physics are too disturbing to contemplate. Addendum from senior researcher Blorb. The field research team has requested collective memory wiping of their Australian wildlife encounters. Request pending review. Of particular note is their observation that local humans regularly interact with these creatures for something called social media content. This suggests either unprecedented bravery or a species-wide tendency toward what they term chaos energy. Special note: the team's encounter with something called a quokka has been classified as an anomaly. No species should be simultaneously that lethal and that photogenic. Current theory suggests possible mimetic weapon. Final classification update: Earth status upgraded from Class 3 developing world to approach with extreme caution. Earth wildlife status absolutely not to be messed with. House cats classification pending review by Physics Department. Recommendation: maintain observation from minimum safe distance. Suggested another solar system. Postscript from Crax's personal log. The Council thinks the wildlife is weaponized. The wildlife isn't the weapon. The real weapon is that humans consider these creatures cute and actively seek them out for cuddles. Any species that can look at a wolf and think I can make this my friend is not to be underestimated. And somewhere on Earth, there's still a goose with our quantum scanner. May the cosmos have mercy on us all. Status report addendum. The research team has unanimously voted to redirect their careers towards studying the relatively safer field of active neutron stars. 3 members have developed an involuntary tremor at the sound of purring. The goose incident has been classified as a potential interstellar security risk. Final note from Defense Council: if the humans ever realize what they have, may the void help us all. For now, classification of Earth's wildlife as living weapons appears to have been optimistic. They're clearly something far worse: evolution with a sense of humor. The emergency session of the Galactic Security Council was unprecedented in several ways. First, it was being held in a reinforced panic room. Second, all classified wildlife footage was being shown with warning disclaimers. And third, several council members had insisted on attending via hologram after hearing the words Australian wildlife presentation. High Commander Vazen, a being composed of pure energy and barely contained anxiety, called the session to order. We are gathered here today to address the Earth wildlife crisis. Dr. Pax Tentacula, you have the floor. Please be gentle with the presentation. Pax's tentacles quivered nervously as they approached the podium. Esteemed council members, what I'm about to show you will challenge everything we know about biological warfare. Zorp, begin with the raccoon footage. Are you sure? Zorp bubbled anxiously. The test audience needed sedation after. Play it. The holographic display flickered to life, showing what appeared to be a simple storage container with a supposedly unbreakable locking mechanism. A small, masked creature approached it. Notice the problem-solving capability Pax narrated. Watch as it defeats our most advanced security systems using only its bare paws. 3 council members immediately initiated emergency meditation protocols as they watched the raccoon casually open the quantum-locked container, remove a snack, and then lock it again behind itself. That's impossible, shouted a council member made of crystalline logic matrices. Those locks are coded to respond only to specific molecular patterns. And yet, Pax continued grimly, the creature not only opened it but appeared to do so purely for amusement. We've documented them solving increasingly complex puzzles simply because, and I quote from our field researchers, chaos brings them joy. Surely this is proof of bioengineering, insisted a gaseous council member. No natural species could. Next slide. Zorp. The display changed to show a small, fluffy creature marking its territory. Several council members relaxed slightly at the seemingly harmless image. This, Pax announced, is footage of what humans call a skunk. How dangerous could it possibly be, scoffed a council member composed of quantum uncertainties. It appears to be merely decorative. The skunk, Pax continued, their tentacles curling with scientific trauma, produces a chemical weapon so potent it can be detected from half a mile away, causes immediate sensory overload, and leaves its victims marked for social isolation for up to 2 weeks. Even the humans fear it. And yet Via Zen's energy form flickered nervously. They consider them cute. They make stuffed toy versions for their young. The Quantum Uncertainty Council member began to destabilize. But surely, Via Zen pressed, these must be their most dangerous specimens. Actually, Zorp interjected helpfully, these are considered their mild wildlife. Would you like to see the Australian footage? No, shouted several council members simultaneously. Perhaps instead, Pax suggested we should discuss their aquatic weapons. The electric eel, for instance, which can generate up to 860 volts of electricity. The crystalline council member developed several stress fractures. Or the pistol shrimp, which creates underwater plasma bubbles hot enough to. We agreed not to discuss the plasma shrimp. Via Zen's energy form surged in alarm. The Physics Council is still trying to explain how that's possible. Then may I present evidence of their airborne division, Pax continued. The hummingbird, a creature so biologically impossible it can fly backwards, hover in place, and has a heart rate of over 1,000 beats per minute. Stop, Via Zen commanded. This is clearly a planet-wide weapons testing facility disguised as a natural ecosystem. I move that we implement immediate quarantine procedures. About that, Zorp interrupted, their purple mass rippling with concern. You should probably see this footage of their primary urban infiltration unit. The display changed to show a small, furry creature with pointed ears and a tail. The common house cat. Pax narrated, demonstrates gravity manipulation, apparent teleportation, and the ability to fit through any opening larger than its whiskers. They have enslaved the human population through a combination of psychological warfare and acoustic manipulation they call purring. The footage showed a cat knocking objects off a high surface while maintaining direct eye contact with its human. Note the casual display of dominance. Pax continued. The humans respond to such acts of aggression by providing treats and expressing admiration for their sass. 2 council members had to be excused for emergency reality adjustment therapy. But most concerning of all, Pax concluded, their tentacles drooping with existential dread, is that none of these creatures are weapons at all. They evolved naturally. The humans didn't create them. They just live with them. They keep them as pets. They make social media content about them. They voluntarily share their living spaces with these biological impossibilities. The council chamber fell silent, except for the soft whir of reality stabilizers. Are you suggesting VA Zen's energy form pulsed weakly, that the humans are more terrifying than their wildlife? Consider the evidence, Pax replied. They see a wolf, one of the planet's apex predators, and think I can make this my friend. They encounter a virtually immortal jellyfish, and their first response is to study it for medical research. They coexist with creatures that defy the laws of physics, and their reaction is to create something called cute animal videos. The emergency medical drones began dispensing panic suppressants throughout the chamber. In conclusion, Pax finished, I recommend we reclassify not just Earth's wildlife, but the entire planet as handle with extreme caution any species that can look at a honey badger and say what an adorable little fellow is clearly operating on a level of reality we are not prepared to comprehend. Viazen's energy form had dimmed to a worried flicker. Motion carried. Earth is hereby classified as a Class X anomaly zone. May the void have mercy on any civilization that tries to invade them. They clearly don't understand fear as a concept. In the back of the chamber, Zork quietly deleted the Australian wildlife footage. Some things, they decided, the council was better off not knowing. The official report, final classification of Earth and its inhabitants, status classified beyond top secret. Note: reading this document requires signing 17 liability waivers and 1 existential crisis acknowledgement form. After extensive research, multiple psychiatric evaluations, and the complete mental breakdown of our entire classification department, we have reached several disturbing conclusions about the planet designated as Earth. 1. Their wildlife evolved naturally. We have verified this conclusion through extensive historical data, genetic analysis, and the therapeutic journals of 15 different research teams. Despite our desperate hopes that these creatures were engineered as weapons, we must accept the horrifying truth: Earth just makes things like this for fun. The planet appears to be running an evolutionary experiment with chaos as its primary variable, noted senior researcher Blorp, shortly before requesting reassignment to study active black holes, which they described as significantly less terrifying than Earth's wildlife. 2. The humans are fully aware of their wildlife's capabilities. This is perhaps the most disturbing aspect of our investigation. They know exactly what these creatures can do, and they respond by making nature documentaries. Evidence log 2387B: human responses to lethal wildlife. Discovered venomous snake in yard RBW. Look how pretty. Encounter with territorial cassowary. Great photo opportunity. Face to face with great white shark. Let's study its behavior. Found spider that can kill with 1 bite. Let's name it Betty. As Dr. Pax noted in their final report, before taking indefinite stress leave, they're not oblivious to the danger. They acknowledge it, respect it, and then proceed to completely ignore it in favor of what they call getting cool footage for their channel. 3. Their classification system is fundamentally broken. We have been forced to create entirely new categories just to deal with Earth's biological impossibilities. New classification categories. How is this even possible? Platypus division. Please stop evolving Australia section. Physics has left the chat. Tardigrade class. Why would nature do this? Deep sea division. Absolutely not general Australian wildlife. Error 404 logic, not found honey badger specific. The Galactic Classification Committee has also officially admitted that Earth's house cats may require a complete revision of our understanding of quantum mechanics. Official safety protocols for Earth wildlife observation. 1. Always assume every creature is deadly until proven otherwise. Then continue assuming it's deadly anyway, because it probably has some backup method of murder you haven't discovered yet. 2. If an Earth creature appears harmless, implement immediate emergency protocols. The harmless ones are always the most dangerous. See Appendix C, the platypus incident. 3. Never, under any circumstances, trust anything from Australia, even the cute ones, especially the cute ones. 4. If a human describes a creature as pretty neat or kind of cute, retreat immediately to a safe distance minimum nearby solar system. 5. All field researchers must now sign a waiver acknowledging that Earth's wildlife just be like that sometimes, and that the committee is not responsible for any existential crises that may result from their observations. Final classification status. Earth has been officially designated as absolutely not to be messed with for the following reasons. A. Their predators are terrifying. B. Their prey is somehow even more terrifying. C. Their humans think both A and B are adorable. As noted in the final addendum to the classification report, any species that can survive on a planet where even the plants have developed multiple ways to commit murder, and then proceed to develop an entire social media category called cute animal videos, is clearly operating on a level of existence we are not equipped to comprehend. Epilogue: The Intergalactic Zoological Society has implemented several new policies in light of the Earth wildlife situation. 1. All classification computers must now have Earth wildlife mode, which automatically adds the prefix "somehow this is natural" to all entries. 2. The phrase "but that's impossible" has been banned from all scientific discussions about Earth species. 3. A mandatory cooling-off period is required between viewing Australian wildlife documentation and operating heavy machinery. 4. The honorary title "Chaos Incarnate" has been officially added to all honey badger classification entries. 5. A support group has been established for researchers traumatized by learning about the platypus. Final note from High Commander Vazen: in light of recent discoveries, we have updated our galactic threat assessment protocols. Any species that looks at creatures that defy the laws of physics, chemistry, and basic survival logic, and responds by saying "I want to pet it," is clearly too powerful to provoke. Earth is hereby classified as no. Just no. Addendum: the goose that stole our quantum scanner is still at large. All field units are advised to maintain alert status. Case closed. Note: this document will self-destruct if exposed to pictures of quokkas, as the cognitive dissonance of something being simultaneously that lethal and that adorable creates a fatal logic paradox in our security systems. End report. And yes, we still haven't figured out how the raccoons keep getting into our quantum locked storage units. At this point, we're afraid to ask,